Yes, thank you. Sige nga, what do you mean by analytic chemistry? Um, yes. Who can give the definition? Parang wala may nag-recite. Lorraine, ikaw na gid Lorraine. Yes,
Analytical
you're
chemistry studies and uses instruments to separate, identify, and quantify matter, sir, or chemical
okay.
substances.
Yes. So meaning you've mentioned at least three process. So we have separation, quantifying of substances, and ano yung isa? Measuring?
Separates or identify and quantify.
Okay. So separating, identify, and quantify. Okay. So meaning from the word itself, analyze or analytic chemistry, we will going to analyze both physical and the chemical reactions of the matter. So I think there are two types of analytic chemistry or two methods. Who can give the two types
Ako si
of, yes, Miss Mary Marr, and also the definition.
Tonto method, sir. Tong wet
Yes.
chemical kag instrumental method, sir.
Again, again.
Wet
Parang,
wet chemical method and instrumental method, sir.
okay. So what do you mean by wet method? What do you mean by that? Mm.
Classical wet chemical method and modern instrumental method, sir.
Okay, so there are two types of method, no? So pwede siyang wet or yung tinatawag natin the classical method. And the other one is the instrumental method, meaning we will going to use some of our modern instruments. Now, aside from that, meron yung dalawang types, no? Types of analyzing the chemicals. It is both what? Yung isa using numbers or amount, yung isa hindi. Anong tawag doon?
Qualitative ug quantitative analysis, sir.
Very good. Duligis. Yeah. Mark Joe is, I know it's not Mark Joe, but John Brian, you are racing. So what's the difference between the two? Qualitative and quantitative
Based on itself,
analysis.
sir, on the quantitative, we're basing on numbers and calculations, while qualitative, we're focusing on the physical traits or the quality of a substance, something like that.
Okay, so very good. So based on physical qualities. So for example, anong mga example niya in describing physical?
For example, in an apple, we can describe it by its color, texture, and size po.
Okay, yes, correct. So color,
That, what
texture, size, or even the odor, the taste, no? As long as it is physical, it will not involve numbers. Now for quantitative, duliges, usually what measurement do we use? In the quantitative analysis, especially in the liquid phase siya, no? Liquid phase. Ano yung mga units na ginagamit natin in measuring? Yes, anybody? Anybody? Anyone from the loop?
Mass, sir.
Yes. Aside from mass, very good, Mark Joe. What else? Ano pa?
Temperature, sir.
volume,
Temperature.
Yes, Cookie, hindi ko marinig. Putol-putol.
Temperature po.
Ano? Okay, temperature. Correct. How
volume,
about John Brian? Volume, correct. Okay, yes. So we also use volume, yung mga ganun. Volume, mass, yung ginagamit natin. So also we discuss about the role of analytical chemistry in different fields. No, we have industry, medicine, and all types of sciences. So parang in summary, ito yung kanyang concept map that it can relate to all branches chemistry kasi usually naman lahat ng branches ngayon ng science parang meron talagang role ang chemistry. For example, ayun, so even in social science, no? Archaeology, anthropology, and forensic, they're using both qualitative and quantitative type of mga analysis nila. Even in agriculture, agricultural science, no? Mga effectivity of fertilizer or weighing yung mga pag-measure nila ng mga plants, kung effective ba ang ganito mga abuno, yung mga ganon. So maraming role ang analytic chemistry. And also, classifying quantitative analytical methods, yun siya, mga measurement. Later in your reports, we will going to discuss that. We are going to discuss yun siya one by one. So dito tayo nag-stop kagabi about picking method, no? Picking a method, meaning this is one of the first questions to be considered in selection process is the level of accuracy required. Meaning when we do the analysis, we should have the level of accuracy. Kailangan talaga accurate, di ba? A second consideration related to economic factor is the number of samples to be analyzed. So for example, in research, paano ba tayo magkuha ng samples? Yung dapat ba marami or konti lang? Based on your experience, paano ba tayo magkuha ng sample?
Dapat marami, sir, para may
Bakit marami, Mark Joe?
para to make sure na for example, enough ang specimen, sir. Or for example, kung kailangan mo mag-retest, meron ka pa specimen nga available.
Okay. Pero hindi talaga siya totally nga sobrang rami, no? So maybe you're talking with, for example, in experimentation, yung mga trials, yes, maraming dapat na trials na gagawin. Pero in getting the sample, dapat konti lang. So for example, yung best example ko talaga when we're talking with sample, halimbawa nagsaing ka ng kanin o nagluto ka ng kanin, paano ba natin malalaman na luto ng kanin? Di ba kukuha tayo ng sample? Paano kayo kumukuha ng sample? Be honest dito. Sino ba nag-try magsaing dito?
Sir, hindi ko kinakalikot yung kanin pagka nagsasaing ako.
So anong ginagawa mo? Paano mo nalaman na luto na?
Pagka
Oo.
sir, nakita ko na isa na lang yung color nila and then pag ng water and also pagka makikita mo naman sir physically if lagdos yung kanin or hindi.
Isang sir,
Okay.
So, ako
Sige, so ganun. So parang you are using qualitative type of analysis, you base only on the physical, no? The color. Yes, the color. Correct. Kasi parang you are also analyzing, di ba? Yung mga ginagawa natin everyday, actually, practical naman talaga, nag-a-analyze tayo. Correct, pwede din yon. Pero I think, katulad ko din sa view here, para sure ball nga luto talagang kanin, di ba we get sample? Di ba
Yes,
hindi
sir.
man natin hindi, pero kung magawa tayo ng sample, hindi natin inuubos ang kanin, right? We get only small amount. Tapos titikman, okay, luto na siya or ilaw pa, di ba? So when we get sample, yun siya, katulad din sa when we analyze some chemicals, we get only number of samples or small amount of samples as our or yung gagamitin natin for analysis. So the complexity of the sample and the number of the components always influence the choice of method to some degree. So meaning it will affect the way you get your sample, no? Your components of sample will influence the result of your analysis. So how to acquire those samples? So here, so sampling, ito, involves, ito na sinasabi ko, Mark Joe, obtaining a small mass of a material. So it should be small. Kasi halimbawa kung magtikim ka nga ng kanin, hindi man talaga half talaga ng rice cooker ubusin mo para lang for your sample. But composition accurately represents the bulk of the material being sampled, even in research. So naniniwala ba kayo, for example, dyan yung magsabi ng ito ang lumabas na survey na ang mananalo na President of the Philippines is si ganito. Tinanong namin ang lahat ng Pilipino, oh, paano nila natanong ang mga Pilipino nga diri sa balay? Wala may nag-question diri yung mga SWS survey, and they are trying to say na kumuha sila ng mga sample. Do you think, oo, ilan kaya yung sample na ginamit nila? No?
Depende, sir, sa population.
Yes, correct. It should depend on the population. But that sample, as I said, will going to represent the book of the material being sampled. So kahit sabihin natin, konti lang kinuha mo na sample, but it will represent the total population. Kasi in scientific method, kung representation lang ng sample ang kukunin natin, it will become more accurate, no? Yung pag-represent natin ng mga sample. So sampling is actually frequently the most difficult step in an analysis and the source of greatest error. Kaya gani, when you do research, first question ko din minsan is that how did you get the sample? Kasi nga, doon talaga nagkakamali din ang mga researcher, ang mga chemist natin, even yung mga nag-a-analyze in getting the sample. Kasi it should be accurate. So, it should be yung parang meron siyang talagang perfect or may step, may computation in getting the sample. Kasi doon tayo pwedeng magkamali. No? It is the most difficult step. So, the final result of the analysis will never be any more reliable than the reliability of the sampling step. So actually we have different types of sampling method, maraming klase. So pero later on, nadi-discuss natin yan. Another thing is, pwede din a material is heterogeneous of its constituent parts can be distinguished visually or with the aid of a microscope. So ito yun siyang sinasabi natin nga in our sample, meron talaga yung lumalabas din na parang different, no? So, pwede siyang tatawagin, the material is heterogeneous, meaning the constituent parts is distinguished visually or using the microscope. For example, a blood sample, may makita ka nga ganito, dapat sila uniform sila, pero merong iba na naga-result. Another thing is, an assay. Is it assay? Anong pagbasa nyo nito, Mr. Mark Joe, in laboratory? Assay, no?
Hindi ko familiar, sir. Sorry.
Hindi ka familiar ng mga gata. Okay. Pero may Chinese translation dito. But I think marami akong naririnig in the laboratory, they pronounce it as assay or wala mo na akong nakarinig ng assay pa. Pero assay, meaning it is the process of determining of how much of a given sample is the material indicated by its name. Meaning again, process of determining how much of a given sample is the material indicated by its name. So for example, nagkuha ka na ng sample doon, tapos sasabihin ko sa inyo, okay, you put the assay in the cover slip, in the cover glass, and then observe it in the microscope. So sometimes we use the term assay as the process na siya in determining how much of a given sample is the material. And the last part is we analyze samples and we determine also the substances. Okay, what else? Under certain circumstances, no sample processing is required prior to the measurement step. What does it mean? Anong ibig sabihin nito? So dito pa lang tayo sa introduction of analytic chemistry. Pero later on, as we go along with our lesson, ipi-perform natin ito para yung lessons natin ma-apply natin. Yes. Sino nung yes? Is that
Sir,
you, John Brian?
Sir, hindi po siya asay.
So what is the correct term?
Asay po. Asay.
Asay talaga? Is
Yes,
it asay? Okay,
Yes po,
sige. Yes. So dito, on step 3, anong ibig sabihin nito? That under certain circumstances, no sample processing is required prior to the measurement step. What does it mean?
Na pwede ka lang magkuha ng sample, sir, along experiment. Hindi ka pwede magkuha ng sample before para ma-steps on.
Again, yes, Mark Joe.
You can only get the sample, sir, after doing the experiment, or you cannot get the sample before doing experiment. Parang ganun.
Can you give a very concrete example?
Like for example, sir, yung sample mo na nagsaing, sir. Siyempre, hindi mo naman,
Oo.
sir, pwede sabihin na luto na yung kanin, hindi mo pa natutubigan yung bigas. Parang ganun.
Okay,
Kailangan mo
sige.
muna isaing muna tapos para may check mo kung luto na or hindi.
Oo. Correct. So, kasi in analytic chemistry, no, yung parang we are doing or following scientific method, no? We are doing the experiment, we analyze substances, so dapat tama talaga yung proseso natin. So here in processing the sample, under certain, when we say certain, mga under circumstances, certain circumstances, that no sample processing is required prior to the measurement step. So for example, you are still measuring, no, on the measuring step, no, dapat there is no muna yung mga sample processing. Okay? Under most circumstances naman, we must process the sample in any of a variety of different ways. Kasi there are many ways in doing the process or processing the sample. Okay? And the first step in processing the sample is often the preparation of a laboratory sample. Na tama naman. So, balikan natin yung example natin na magsasaing ka ng bigas. So, dapat you should have the preparatory step, no? Ano ba ang preparatory kung magsaing? Linisin ang mga kaldero, okay? Ano pa? I-prepare ang bigas, yung mga ganon. So that should be our first step, no? Kasi even yung ngayon, nag-aaral kami ng cookery in situ, parang pangit din, no? Halimbawa, while performing, nagaluto ka. Iba yung naka-prepare ka ng slice mo na ang mga ahos, sibuyas, kamatis, all of your materials, all of your sample, halimbawa, while na nag-perform ka ng activity or experiment, doon ka pa mag-slice. Mag-slice sa mga ahos, alam mo, nagpainit ka na sa kalaha, alangan, di ba? Palungon mo pa ang kalayo, kay mas-slice sa kag-ahos, sus butang na naman. So why not? The first step talaga should prepare, no? Prepare preparation of a laboratory sample. Dapat nandun na. You go to the laboratory, you bring all the sample, and naka-prepare na siya. So, preparing a laboratory sample, what are the steps? A solid sample is ground, mixed to ensure homogeneity and stored for various lengths of time before analysis begins. So ganito ganito yung mga technique natin. For example, we are preparing a sample. Okay ng mga sample. When it is a solid, no, solid sample is ground. So mix to ensure its homogeneity. So halimbawa kung solid siya, ano talaga natin, make sure, mix to ensure the homogeneity. Halimbawa kung ito mga color red, yung mga ganon is separate na, and stored for various lengths of time before analysis begin. So tama din dapat yung ating pagka-store sa mga sample. Because any loss or gain of water changes the chemical composition of solids, it is a good idea to dry samples just before starting an analysis. So here, parang tinuturuan tayo dito na dapat a good idea is that dapat yung mga samples natin, especially when it is solid, should be dry, no, before starting an analysis. Kasi kung hindi mo siya malagay sa proper na storage, it will affect your or the result of your analysis, such as yung mga loss or gain of water changes in the chemical composition. So alternatively, the moisture content of the sample can be determined at the time of the analysis in a separate or analytical procedure. So talaga kailangan, ano talaga siya, yung microscopically, talagang dapat proper talaga ang pagkuha natin o pag-analyze. Okay, another one, for solid samples naman, these are subject to solvent evaporation. So kailangan ano talaga siya, maka-intact din ang mga solid. Kasi kung open container siya, pwede siyang ma-contaminate, and aside from that, mag-evaporate. So if the analyte is a gas dissolved in a liquid, analyte must be kept inside a second sealed container to prevent contamination by atmospheric gases. So dapat mga liquids talaga nasa container sila, no? And kapag ano pag siya gas dissolved in a liquid siya, it should have the second sealed container. Grabe gid ang pagka-sealed nyo. Extraordinary measures naman including sample manipulation and measurement in an inert atmosphere or may be required to preserve the integrity of the sample. Okay. So ito na yung sinasabi kanina ni Mark, Joe, na bakit kailangan marami. Yung gusto niya sigurong i-mean is yung mga tinatawag natin mga replicate samples, or another term is replicates. Meaning are proportions of a material of approximately the same size that are carried through an analytical procedure at the same time at in the same way. So for example, kasi when I'm having my masteral, gusto ko yung research ko about mga experimental siya. So, ang study ko before is more on analysis of water. Water analysis, yung is it potable water ba ang ininom sa Tampakan? Kasi Tampakan for now, wala pang malaking municipality siya pero wala pa siyang water system. Yung parang ganon. Katulad dun sa Marbel, we have, ano ganito dito sa Marbel, meron tayong, ano yan? Anong tawag natin sa water system natin? Water district, mga ganun, God. So in Tampakan, they rely only on yung mga flowing, no? So my question is, are they safe sa inyo? Pwede ba yun siya inumin? Yung mga water na flowing lang, God? Oo, kasi usually ganyan man sa mga bundok, sa mga areas na wala pang water district. Oh. Yes, Mark, Joe, parang may gusto kang i-share.
Depende siguro sa location, sir. Kaya sa iba na di ba, may mga excessive na mga minerals kaya hindi siya healthy para sa aton.
Yeah. You know what, yung nag-ikot ako kasi sabi ko sa mga schools lang ang concern ko kasi education man ako. So pinuntahan ko talaga yung mga water source nila, and I found out na yung mga water din sa school ay yun din ang water ng community. Parang ginaipon nila ang tubig sa isang tub. Malaking tub. Oo, dito lang ang may mataas na tube, dito nag-aagas ang tubig. And doon lahat. Kasi ako nakaturo din ako sa bundok, sa Palo 19 in Tampakan. Yung parang nag-boy scout talaga kami kasi nga sobrang taas ng school. So ginawan kami ng barangay doon ng parang namin, quarters, doon na kami gastay, malapit sa school. So kung maliligo kami, pupunta kami doon sa community na water source. So nandoon, naliligo kami. Kasama namin may naglalaba, tapos may nagakuha ng tubig, tapos may nagapaligo ng kabayo. Diba? Sadya-sadya. Ganun ang mga buhay namin before as teachers. Yung parang we can't imagine. So yun ang analyze ko. Sabi ko, magkakaroon kaya ako ng water analysis about kung are they safe for drinking or ano ba, yung parang how about the exposure on yung mga waterborne diseases, di ba? Exciting din yun na study pero hindi ako gumawa ng analysis syempre kasi wala akong laboratory. Yung merong mga water district like Polomolo or even in South Cotabato, dyan talaga ako nagpa-analyze ng water. I bring the samples, no? Tatlong samples, tatlong replicates. For example, this barangay, may tatlo akong dala ng mga test tube. And yung isa, parang that cost mga 500. So imagine nung di pala basta-basta mag-research din magastos. Okay, so let's continue. So when we say replication, it improves the quality of the results and provides a measure of their reliability. So kailangan natin yan, meron talagang replication. So for example, gusto niyo pag-aralan about blood analysis, hindi pwedeng isang blood lang. So dapat punuin mo talaga yung tatlong test tube mo, meron kang mga replicates, no? Kasi it will improve the quality. Kasi malay mo, unang tingin mo sa microscope sa isang sample, ano yon, na-contaminate. So, check ka get another sample o yung another replicate mo. Kaya usually, nilalagyan natin na ng R1, R2, yung mga replication natin. So, in quantitative measurement on replicates are usually average. So, meaning, halimbawa, gin-measure natin yung tatlong replicates mo, halimbawa, blood sample ka, R1, R2, and R3, gin-measure natin yan. So, we will get the average, i-divide natin by 3 kung ilan man yung replicates ninyo. And the various statistical tests are performed on the result to establish their reliability. So, in the future, kayo, kung magre-research kayo, kukuha kayo na halimbawa pag-aralan nyo yung mga leaves ng guava as antioxidant. So, dapat, when you get the sample of the leaf, dapat may mga replicates talaga. Okay, what else? Now, let's proceed with solutions. Are you familiar with solution? What is a solution? Sige nga, in your inorganic chemistry, let's have a simple review. What is a solution? Na-discuss ba ito? Wala. Hello, are you still there?
Mixture
Yes,
of a
Miss
solute
Cookie.
and solvent, sir.
Correct. It's a mixture between a solute and a solvent. Now, yes, Joe, ito si Torres. What is a solute? Torres, what is solute? Kasi ako ma-remember ko talaga, grade 7 na lesson kasi yung mga solutions. So magpakuha ko ng mga sample sa mga bata. Tapos, syempre, mga grade 7, some of them are non-readers. Tapos kailang magsabi talaga ako, okay, this is our solute. Nasunlugon ko sa mga bata, ay, na si Mr. Solute. Si Mr. Tinatawag nila ko Mr. Kasi, alangan, nambalong ko sila kung ano. So, okay. So, i-review muna natin. Walang internet si Joe. Diba si John Ronnie ito? O, Joe Ronnie. Okay, component that dissolve in solvent poster. Okay, very good. So those are component that dissolve in our solvent. Okay, so meaning automatically solvent are the one that dissolve our solutes. Okay. So kung halimbawa ang sample mo naman is solutions, so you will going to analyze both physical and chemical changes. So ito yung parang the process. Ideally, the solvent should dissolve the entire sample. So yun siya dapat. So parang binibigyan ko na kayo ng idea no bago tayo magpasok or mag-perform ng mga laboratory experiments. So ideally, the solvent should dissolve the entire sample including the analyte rapidly and completely. So kailangan talaga hintayin natin or ubusing ma-dissolve. Halimbawa, when you mix, for example, gusto mo lang i-try talaga yung concentration between blood and water, so ihalo mo siya. So hintayin mo talaga, no? The sample may require heating with aqueous solutions of strong acids, strong bases, oxidizing agents, reducing agents, or some combination of such reagents. So it requires heating kung gusto mo talagang makuha yung mga, kung may acid siya, is it strong acid? So meron tayong mga heating. So dito sa school natin, maybe we can perform some of this, yung mga basic, mga heating. Siguro imposible naman walang mga tripod dito, walang mga alcohol lamp. No, gagamitin natin yan. So it may be necessary also to ignite the sample in air or oxygen or perform a high temperature fusion of the sample in the presence of various fluxes. Okay, sige. Kasi you know what, class, kahit sabihin yung BS in Biology ako, nag-part-time ako before, hindi ko talaga makalimutan, nag-part-time ako sa St. Alexius for nursing and midwifery students. So naganda kami ng laboratory. Yung parang kasi ang training ko at background ko sa MSU lang, wala ba yung mga magagandang laboratory apparatus doon. So nagpunta ako sa St. Alexius, talagang namangha ako. Kasi advanced lagi. Siyempre may nursing goods sila, di ba? So yung parang kung hindi ko pa gin-YouTube, hindi ko pa ma-manipulate ang mga ang mga materials doon. Sometimes iba talagang kakabahan ko talaga, halimbawa, ganito, ganyan. Okay. Now, how to eliminate interference? So, few chemicals or physical properties of importance in chemical analysis are unique to a single chemical species. So, species another than the analyte that affect the final measurement are called interferences or our interference. Meron talagang mga interferences yan. Meaning there are some few chemicals. Halimbawa, nag-heat ka, nagpa-boil ka, meron yung mga few chemicals or mga some physical properties yan siya. Now, an interference meaning those are species that causes an error in an analysis by enhancing or attenuating or making smaller the quantity being measured. Kasi sometimes chemical reactions, meron talaga yung may lalabas na ibang chemical. So how to do that? Techniques or reactions that work for only one analyte are said to be specific. So techniques or reactions that apply for only a few analytes are what we call selective. So the matrix or sample matrix is all of the components in the sample containing an analyte. So please take note also that in chemical analysis, matrix refers to the components of a sample other than the analyte of interest. Okay, so meron pa tayong mga calculation pero later na yan when we do experiments, magkaka-calculate tayo. So here, ideally, the measurement of the property is directly proportional to the concentration. So always remember that. The measurement of the property is directly proportional to the concentration. So parang ganito ang formula. So this is our concentration and K is the proportionally constant yan siya. So how to calculate the result? Computing analyte concentration are based on the raw experimental data collected in the measurement step. So the characteristics of the measurement instruments and the stoichiometry of the analytical reactions. So here is the evaluation of the result by estimating the reliability. Analytical results are incomplete without an estimate of their reliability. So later na natin yung magkakaroon tayo ng mga solving. Okay. Also, in doing some chemical analysis, meron talaga tayong mga feedback control system. Meaning, this is the measurement element in all of these examples and in many other cases. So this process of continuous measurements and control is often referred to as the feedback system. Meaning the cycle of measurement, comparison, and control is called the feedback loop. Okay, ayan siya. Feedback control system. Maybe, yan siya, application lang.